Good evening, and thank you very much for attending tonight's Iraq Town Hall meeting. My name is Dan Wadley, and I'm with Citizen Action in Wisconsin. And we're taping this to be shown later on public access television. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide a forum where our panelists respond to your questions regarding Iraq, its history, the experience our troops have had in Iraq, and the consequences and costs of our continued involvement in Iraq. We asked folks, which we had sent out in emails previously, if they wanted to submit questions in advance, and we've had an overwhelming response from folks who chose to do that. We already have approximately about 44 questions, so let me get started. We have Dr. Robert Craig, and I'll let you tell them a little bit about yourself.
I'm the Communications and Program Director at Citizen Action of Wisconsin. In a previous life, I got a PhD at UW-Madison and have published a couple articles and books on foreign policy, and I'm actually a pundit on a local foreign policy program in Milwaukee as well, but now at Citizen Action, we are now working on the war, so it is an opportunity to connect that to my other work, so I'm honored to be here.
I'm Martin Gruber, Professor of Political Science in the University of Wisconsin at Oshkosh. I can't claim any expertise as a Middle East authority. I have classes at Columbia, my doctoral program in that area, but I'm basically public law and public policy with focus on the American system.
I'm Jamie Aulick, an Iraq war veteran. I'm from Manitowoc, and at any rate, I hold a triple major in political science, history, and philosophy from Marquette University, and I have a master's degree in public affairs from UW-Madison. And I guess the Iraq War, we'll get more into it, but I got my bachelor's degree, went away to Baghdad for a year, and then got a master's degree. But like I say, we'll get more into that. And I just want to let you know, I am an active reservist as well, so my views tonight are my own personal opinions, not the United States government or the U.S. Army or the Army Reserve. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm Gene Farley, a retired family physician who absolutely am concerned about treatment of civilians in our present healthcare system and treatment of veterans in our present healthcare system, and feel that everybody has to have good healthcare coverage, period, no exceptions. I happen to be a veteran because in the middle of my senior year in high school I was going to be a hero. It was 1944, so I enlisted in the Navy, and by the time I was 19 I got out. It was the end of the war, and I had a year in the Brooklyn Naval Hospital, not as a patient but as a pharmacist mate, and since then I've recognized that we have to take good care of people, period. No such thing as anybody getting inferior health care, whether they're civilian or veteran or military enlisted.
I'm Mary Naylor. My husband Dan and I are here tonight. We're the proud parents of 3 children, 2 of which served in the Iraq War early on. Our daughter Laura joined the National Guard as a student at UW-Madison in 2001, 2002. It was 2001. It was the March before 9/11, and was a military police. She's in active ready reserve right now, just completing her 6 years of active duty. She was stationed in Baghdad. Our son Joe was regular Army medic, who was in from 2000 to 2004. He was in Iraq in the Ramadi area, between Ramadi and Fallujah, which you know is not a very good place in Iraq. He was there from September of 2003 to September of 2004. Our other son just got accepted to the Peace Corps, which we're very excited about. So we live in Waupaca, Wisconsin. Dan is a Vietnam-era veteran, has his own human service consulting business. I work for the Head Start program in central Wisconsin. I have more here, but I think probably a lot of these will get answered as the questions come up. We are very concerned about our veterans who are still serving, and those who are coming home that are maimed physically and emotionally, and want to make sure that they're cared for as well.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here, and I'm Dan.
And I thank all of you for attending tonight, and I thank our panelists for attending. As I said, we had received an overwhelming response from the request for email questions in advance. And what we're going to do is to begin our questions with our two political science experts, Dr. Craig and Dr. Gruber, to better understand Iraq. And then we'll address your questions about the firsthand experiences of Iraq for both our troops, like Jamie, as well as the families who have sons and daughters in Iraq, such as Mr. and Mrs. Naylor. And then we'll address your questions on veterans care and veterans affairs issues through Dr. Farley, as we've seen come to light with Walter Reed, and we'll learn later are problems that have been well known to the Bush administration and to Congress for many years. Dr. Craig, for us to achieve President Bush's goals in Iraq, how many more years are you estimating we are looking at having troops in Iraq?
I mean, you have to start with what the goals are.
Do we know what the goals
and
are?
whether the goals are achievable. I mean, the justification for the war is shifted. It started with weapons of mass destruction. It then was shifted to terrorism. It was connected to terrorism all along, but any connection between 9/11 and Saddam Hussein was never firmly established. So the goal now seems to be democracy in Iraq and to create a stable democracy there. That goal is not achievable by force. It's certainly not achievable by outside force in the United States. And some of the various theories that have been developed in the administration about how they'll play various parties off of each other in order to create some sort of center that could govern by using the Shiite majority regime are not plausible or possible. And so I guess my answer would be that the goals are not achievable and that it's inevitable we're going to leave. The question is how are we going to leave and when, and what's the cost?
Which I guess would lead me to my next question. What would happen to Iraq if we left now? We're told it would descend into total chaos, but isn't it in chaos right now?
Well, there's a possibility, we have the same scenario about what would happen in Vietnam if we pulled out. So we have to stay the course, you've heard that expression. And it is possible that without the American presence, the Iraqis would have to make their own peace. Maybe it'll be a federal system. Maybe it'll be a regional civil war or a world war in the region. It might bring in Turkey to go after the Kurds. It might bring in the Iranians to look after their Shiite brothers. It might bring in the Syrians to make sure that the Sunni are not taken advantage of. Or it could be, the Baker-Hamilton Commission recommended that we try to have a political solution and set some sort of date for U.S. termination so that the Iraqi government will not rely on us, and they'll realize if they want a future, they've got to rely on themselves. But I said, the United States has little knowledge of this region. We have the same problem with Iran. How many people in our embassy in Tehran spoke Farsi, the language? So we had no idea about the unpopularity of the Shah and how much pressure there was to overthrow him. And again, we came up with Chalabi. Chalabi hadn't been in Iraq in over 30 years. And then Alawi, again, another fellow who was in exile. These were folks who spoke English, and they were on our wavelength, and we thought somehow or other the crowds would dance in the street. We pulled down the statues of Saddam, and democracy would be enthroned. But it doesn't work that way.